attempt to correct some of the issues in this photograph using the correction tools that Photoshop gives us. So we have the spot heal brush that we're going to explore along with the patch tool, and then there's the clone stamp tool. So those are the three that we're going to be looking at today that can help you fix most issues in photographs where you have like parts missing or little blemishes like on a subject's face, or different colors that are kind of out of place. Like, we might be able to get rid of this equal sign pretty easily and cover up some of these blemishes on this graffiti art. So first and foremost, I always make a copy, the background layer, and then if we're going to be like painting over the top of this, for example, that might be one way to cover this up. I would add a separate layer here, click the plus sign, maybe title this green, make like a green layer, and then I could take my eyedropper and grab that exact color, get my brush tool, use the brush preset picker to choose a type of brush tip, and then the size, maybe I want it to be a little bit smaller, and then I just paint right over that. So that's one way to make like a custom area correction. But Photoshop, if I want to show, Photoshop has the artificial intelligence, has the AI tools that can do that. So as well. So if I click right here on the spot heal brush, I can just hover over and just basically drag an area and tell Photoshop where I want it to source pixels. Basically it takes the source pixels from around that area, and I basically make my brush big enough and tell Photoshop this is the troublesome area, and it fills it in based on the pixels that are around it and the color that's around it. So it doesn't do a perfect job all the time. It kind of depends on what you're trying to cover up. So we can zoom way in and see how this is working. So if you click right there, it just kind of fills that in and fixes it. So if we have a very, very destroyed area down here, obviously this isn't going to work so well with the spot heal brush. So we need something that's a little bit more exact. So I need to tell Photoshop I'm going to borrow these pixels and I'm going to try and paint it in with the pixels that are there. So here's the area that's missing. Here's the area that I'm going to take as my source pixels. So with the clone stamp, it's similar to the spot heal, except it lets you choose the pixels that you're going to paint with. So I'm going to hover over here and say this is good enough. This is a close enough color to what that is. So I'm just going to hold down Option. The Option key will allow me to choose the source pixels. So hold Option and click. And now my brush is loaded with that color and with that the pixels from that area. So you notice if I go too far, it kind of picks up that little white spot. If I go over here too far, it's going to pick up the design element on this side. So you can see it's painting exactly what pixels the little plus sign on the left is hovering over, which might be okay in this case, but at some point I'm going to have to start over, click Option again, and start again. So now I just held Option, clicked again, and now I'm going to borrow this thing from over here. I'm going to paint. So I'm kind of being creative with what source pixels I'm using. Maybe I'll create this design up here, click, and then just fill this area with that design. Because it's graffiti, right? So there's no rules. It could be repeated. And most people probably won't notice that. Okay, so that's looking a little bit more complete. Okay, and then if I have something like this line, I might have to paint a little bit more carefully. So hold down Option, click right on that line, and then whenever I'm painting, make sure I line it up exactly. And just kind of go down the line. So there's looking a little bit more finished. So those are some of the correction tools to use. The patch tool, It probably wouldn't be the best since this is such a complicated design. It would be more for like, a simple area of clothing where like you have a hole in a shirt or something like that and you can patch it. So underneath the spot heal brush, you'd grab the patch tool, and then just to kind of show you what that does, if I make like a selection here, so say I'm going to select these 3 blue dots, and then when I drag, it's just going to fill that with wherever I drag to. So maybe I'll place it right about here. And then it fills it in. Command D, there's my patch tool. So this was before, this was after. I don't know that it's better, but that's just what the patch tool does. So those are some of the corrective tools that Photoshop has given you. It also has the content aware fill, which is pretty powerful. So if you want Photoshop to try and fill in the area for you, let's see if I have a better image for this. So I have her selected. This is going to be weird. Make a copy of that layer. So say I grab basically her outline. I'm just going to stay, on the outside, go all the way around. And we're going to say, okay, Photoshop, fill in this area here based on what you see in the background. So it's going to probably extend this gray part over. It'll probably put some trash where she is. So if we wanted to like Command C, Command V, put her on a separate layer. Select those pixels again. Okay, and then on this background copy, I want to try this content aware fill. This is another corrective tool, or a way for Photoshop to fill in an area with AI. So I go to Edit Fill, having that selection, and I choose Content Aware from the choices. Now if I chose foreground color, it would just fill it with green. We don't want that. We want Photoshop to use its AI software to try and guess what should be there based on the pixels around it. So I click OK. It does its thing. It does some thinking. And this is another way that you could move her. You know, say you fill this area in, and now we have some options with her outline that I've placed on layer 1 that I could move her to the other side of the frame. You know, if I needed her to be looking out the left side of the picture. So Photoshop did a pretty good job, actually, of guessing what it would look like if she were not in that picture. So now I had her on layer 1. Here she is, and here's the picture without her. So now with her outline, I can go ahead and move that. And it's not a perfect outline, obviously, because I didn't take much time in making it. But I have some flexibility with where I place her now within the composition because of that content aware fill.